Hello everybody and welcome to Operations of the Modern Green Bay and Western on the WiscoTrains YouTube channel. My name is Gabe. I really wanted to do some videos on the operations of the Modern Green Bay and Western, and I have felt that they would not fit well into my Modern Green Bay and Western updates where I tell you how I did something, or how to do something, or sometimes how not to do something. And I decided to just start a new series where we just talk about the operations. Operations to me is very important. It's probably the part of model railroading that I enjoy probably the most. Maybe next to making scenery and weathering freight cars and stuff, I would say operations is my favorite thing to do. So today's just going to be an introduction to 3 different ways, or I guess 3.5 different ways to operate my layout, the Modern Green Bay and Western. I'll give a little background since not all of you probably know what my model railroad. There's probably some new viewers out there. My layout is proto-freelanced and is based on the Green Bay and Western. It diverges from real history in the sense that the Green Bay and Western still exists today in 2025. It is now a fairly busy modern bridge route running across Wisconsin. And kind of think of like the Montana Rail Link before the Burns Northern Santa Fe bought it back out. We have modern 6-axle locomotives, intermodal trains, manifests, in addition to the ever-important local traffic. I model a portion of the New London subdivision running from Seymour in the east to New London in the west. The layout itself is a folded figure 8 with a staging yard in the middle and a sneak-off interchange with Fox Valley and Lake Superior, or the Fox. You'll hear me refer to the Foxy a lot, but that is Wacto's wholly owned railroad, the Fox Valley and Lake Superior, specifically the portion that works out of Appleton and runs to New London. So essentially the layout is a very big and complex circle. The layout size is 13 feet long by 7.5 feet wide, and it is designed to handle 14-car trains with 2 or 3 modern locomotives. So with that out of the way, let me show you the 3 ways I designed the layout to operate. So the first way I want to talk about operating my layout is actually 2 different ways. The first way being what I would call armchair operations. And that is essentially just coming down to the layout, turning on the lights, turning on a DCC system and getting the train up and running, and just running it around the loop. Just like the 4x8 I had when I was in middle school and high school, there's something about just letting the trains run and run around in a circle where I just get to enjoy them. I get to see them go through my scenes, I get to admire my handiwork, and it's low stress. I can put on a YouTube video and watch, see how somebody else is working on their layout and still enjoy my model railroad. It is a very low stress, easy way to operate my model railroad, and is one of the reasons I included a loop on my track plan. This area wasn't very easy to include a loop with a long run, which is what I wanted. And that's why I went with the folded figure 8. So it influenced a lot of my design priorities, as I really wanted to be able to just come down to my basement, maybe just kind of shut my brain off for a little bit, just think about trains, get away from work and the rest of life, and have some relaxation. Because at the end of the day, isn't that what our hobby and model railroading is all about? Now, the second way of using the loop is what I would call rail fan operations. And that requires a little bit more effort. I might still just come down and turn on a YouTube video and turn on the layout and start running some trains. But usually what I do is I get 2 trains running in opposing directions, and I use the 2 visible sidings I have in New London and in Black Creek, and the 1 non-visible one, which is essentially my staging yard. And I run trains opposing each other and orchestrate meets. It's a great way to add a little bit more operations, a little bit more thought process into my easy operations, and it's really just a lot of fun. In a sense, it's a realistic way to operate the layout, kind of figure out, pretend you're the dispatcher and see how you can get this train across the layout with train opposing it. And I have a lot of fun doing that, and that's another way that I can run the layout without a lot of effort. It doesn't take much time. Even if I just get 10 minutes to do it, I can still easily run the railroad and have a lot of fun doing it. It doesn't take as much setup as, say, what I'm going to talk about next, which is local operations. So those are two big reasons why I opted for the loop layout. I know point-to-points are more realistic because that's how real railroads run, and I totally agree with realistic operations and doing that. However, it is a hobby, and at times I just want to come down and hang out and have some fun without having to think too much. And sometimes I just want to have the trains run while I'm thinking about what's the next project I'm going to work on. So, for my money, if you can find a way to do it and you can do it realistically, nothing wrong with the loop. I understand space constraints and all that stuff, but I do like having a loop, and you can do realistic operations with a loop, which is what I'm going to prove in my second way of operating a model railroad, and that is what I call local operations. So the next kind of operations that I want to talk about is what I call local operations. And in this, it takes a little bit of that rail fanning operations, and I added another wrinkle. And this is what I designed the model railroad to do the most. For most of you who don't know, I'm a lone wolf modeler. I'm the one that does all this. I don't have extensive friends or anything like that, and operating groups that I'm part of. I do this alone. So I wanted to design the railroad for me to be able to run local operations, which for those who don't know, locals are the trains that do the last and first mile of freight haulage on railroads. They switch the cars, sometimes individual cars, to the individual industries, and it's kind of the bare bones basic way for a railroad to make money. So when I decided to pick an area of the modern Green Bay and Western that I wanted to model, I picked an area where I would be able to run at least 2 locals, and I ended up actually getting 3 because I had designed a complete operating scheme, which we will talk about in the next and last type of operations that I intend to do on the layout. So I have 2 locals that work my line that are Green Bay and Western. The first one is Train 5, and that is the local that runs from Green Bay's Norwood Yard and runs all the way to Black Creek. So it comes out of my staging yard, does about half a lap of the loop, comes to Black Creek, and goes back. And it works all the industries in Seymour and all the industries in Black Creek on my layout. And actually, those are the only industries that, if the Green Bay and Western existed in the real world, that I believe Train 5 would serve. The next local I run is Train 6, and that is a local turn that comes out of West Wisconsin Rapids, goes to New London, and comes back. So again, staging yard is West Wisconsin Rapids, and the only on layout area that the local switches is New London. My third local and final local is Foxy Train AP203. And that runs from Appleton Yard, which is represented by the Foxy Sneak-Off, runs into New London and interchanges cars at the New London Yard. It's kind of cool just having a live railroad that is off the layout and you can interchange with. And it adds in one more operation session that I can do. So when I run these locals, I don't just run the locals by themselves. What I'll do is I'll put one of my manifest or intermodal trains out on the layout and just let it run circles and laps around the layout to get in the way of my locals. On this way, the locals have to dive into the sidings and make way for the manifest freight. And that way, when you're doing runaround moves, you kind of have to gauge, do I have enough room before this next train comes in? And it adds an extra level of complexity, more than just switching the cars. And it's also nice seeing the trains have meets and stuff like that. So it's really fun. And it is kind of the number one way that I operate the layout. In doing it this way, it takes me approximately 45 minutes to an hour to run one of my locals. It just depends on how many cars I have planned out to switch and stuff like that. I don't currently use anything like car cards or waybills or anything like that. I do hope to have some sort of system in the future, but now, just by myself in basic operations, I can tend to give myself enough variety and say, hey, we're dropping this car off here or leaving this car here. So really, this is the number one way that I designed this layout to run, and that's another reason I have the loop. I keep coming back to that, but the loop enables me to do that, to have a mainline train running that I don't really have to pay too much attention to, other than dodging it with my local. And sometimes I do have to stop it. Like when I work Seymour, there's no siding there for the local to take, so I have to be judicious and stop my trains in Black Creek or New London, Black Creek, before they enter Seymour and cause issues. So you notice I mentioned Train 5 and Train 6, and that is built off of the actual old Green Bay and Western train numbers and train naming scheme. And in that sense, it kind of brings us to the next and final way that I plan on operating the layouts. And I don't have a great term for what that is, but I'm going to use the term intensive operations. So why are we over at the workbench, and why do I have the computer over here if we're talking about operations, and specifically my intensive operations? And that's because my intensive operations are at this point just a theory and an idea. Prior to building this layout, I spent probably about a year and a half coming up with what I determined to be the idea and the background to it and the trains that would run on it and the fictional history of the modern Green Bay and Western. Everything you can think of, I probably planned out to a certain point in a certain degree, even including the industries that I thought would be along the Green Bay and Western. I went through in detail. And part of that is all on here, my computer and Google Docs. I have train symbols for every train that I think might theoretically operate on the Green Bay and Western if it existed in real life, or if I was able to model the entirety from, Lake Michigan all the way to the Mississippi River. So in that sense, that's what intensive operations is the idea that I would be able to host an operations session where we would run every single intermodal train, every single manifest train, every single local, every single Canadian National Bridge route train that comes across the railroad on my layout. And we would be able to, have a meet and come through and, essentially model 24 hours in the life of the modern Green Bay and Western. But to the point of intensive operations, if I ever was to get part of a group of friends that were into model railroading or, an operations group of some sort, my layout could support it. And that's why I planned all this stuff out. Also, it helped me kind of pick where exactly I wanted to model on my modern Green Bay and Western, treating it almost as like a prototype, and that I'm, the documents I created are the research for it. And I'm researching and looking into it, and that's how I picked the area that I did, the portion of the New London subdivision that I'm modeling. So intensive operations, still a theory, but still part of the layout that I could get to one day. That's intensive operations, and that is the third and final way that my layout was designed to be run. And with that being said, we're done with my intro to operations. So those are the three and a half ways that I operate the layout or plan to operate the layout. Unintentionally, this became a video about how you can realistically operate a layout that's a loop. I just think as much as I love realistic operations, I think model railroads should be designed for that. There's nothing wrong with having a loop and being able to use it effectively. It takes a little bit of imagination, but you can really use it to your advantage, especially if you're somebody who is a lone wolf like I am. So, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. There's a lot of videos on this channel, not just about, obviously, operations is the first one, but about building the modern Green Bay. And thanks for watching. Please check out the channel. There are more videos regarding the modern Green Bay and Western and how I built it, and also some rail fanning videos. So if you're into that kind of stuff, maybe give another video a watch, and please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching the intro to operations, and let me know down in the comments below what you thought of the video and what maybe you'd like to see me cover in this kind of video in the future. I'm interested to see what you guys are interested in when it comes to operations, and see if there's something that I could talk about or show you on my layout that might interest you. So have a great rest of your week. Bye.